Every August 8th, Princess Beatrice's birthday passes quietly. A short tribute from her mother, a few family photographs, and a day the palace barely marks. But hanging over her 38th birthday is a question with a very strange property. It cannot be legally answered until almost everyone watching this video is gone. Somewhere in London, Queen Elizabeth II's will lies locked away. By the same rule that sealed Prince Philip's will for 90 years, hers is expected never to be read. Not by journalists, not by historians, not even by most of her own family. Whatever the Queen left this granddaughter, if she left her anything at all, is locked inside. And yet, in her final years, Elizabeth did something for Beatrice that she did for no other grandchild. Two things, in fact, on a single day. Not in a will, not in a statement. In plain sight, at a wedding the world barely got to see. And what Beatrice has done since may be the closest thing to a public reading of that sealed will we will ever get. The answer was never in the vault. It has been sitting in the open this entire time. Here's where to look. On paper, this is a story about a birthday and about jewellery. In truth, it touches something the palace has never fully explained. What happens to a monarch's personal belongings once the history books and the crown have taken everything they are entitled to, and who, inside a very large and very ranked family, the Queen actually trusted? Because rank is public, titles are public, trust is not. For most of the family, that question stays sealed with the paperwork forever. In Beatrice's case, the evidence never was sealed. It just took years for anyone to read it properly. The evidence sits in plain sight, every piece of it on the public record. Two pieces are things the Queen handed over herself. The third is what Beatrice did back, twice, years apart. And the second time, everything that made the first one make sense was gone. Princess Beatrice was born on the 8th of August, 1988, the elder daughter of Prince Andrew and Sarah, Duchess of York. For much of her adult life, she was treated as a footnote in royal coverage. She was mocked for days over a fascinator she wore to William and Catherine's wedding in 2011. She was questioned over her lack of an official role. She was overshadowed first by the arrival of Meghan Markle, and then by her sister Eugenie's grander wedding. By the ordinary arithmetic of the monarchy, titles, duties, airtime, her branch of the family was drifting towards the margins, and the coverage said so, year after year. Inside the family, the picture looked different. Beatrice and Eugenie called their grandmother Granny, a name they used again, publicly, in the tribute they released when she died. In an interview with Hello magazine, Beatrice once put it plainly. She had two role models growing up, her mother and her grandmother. That bond was built less around public duty than around the private calendar. Summers at Balmoral, weekends at Windsor, the parts of a royal life no camera is invited to. To understand why that bond matters here, you need one piece of royal law that almost never gets spelled out. British monarchs draw a hard legal line between the crown jewels, which pass automatically to the next sovereign and can never be given away, and a monarch's personal possessions, which behave, under the law, almost like anyone else's estate. Jewellery she owned outright, dresses, letters, photographs. Those were Elizabeth's alone, hers to leave, however, and to whomever she chose. And here is the detail that turns an inheritance story into a locked room. Royal wills are sealed by long-standing convention. When Prince Philip died in 2021, a London court closed his will for 90 years. Elizabeth's is expected to rest under the same protection. If it does, there will be no reading, no list, no announcement, not in our lifetimes. Whatever passed from her hands to her family was always going to pass in silence. Which is why the only evidence that exists is the kind nobody could lock away. What the Queen chose to do in public while she was still alive to do it. Start with the tiara. The Queen Mary Fringe tiara is more than a century old, a blaze of diamond spikes made in 1919 for Queen Mary and worn by Elizabeth herself on her own wedding day in 1947. That morning produced one of the most famous near disasters in royal history. As the 21-year-old princess was dressing for Westminster Abbey, the tiara's frame snapped in her hairdresser's hands. A court jeweller was rushed across London with a police escort to solder it back together while the abbey filled with guests. Elizabeth was married in a piece that had already broken once on the one day it mattered most. Objects like that stop being jewellery. They become memory you can hold. Then the tiara stopped coming to weddings. It surfaced on Princess Anne at her wedding in 1973. After that, no royal bride wore it for 47 years. 2 full generations of brides came and went without it. Diana wore the Spencer tiara. Catherine wore the Cartier halo. Eugénie, Beatrice's own sister, was lent the Greville emerald kokoshnik. Wedding after wedding, the vaults opened, and the Fringe was never the piece that came out, until the 17th of July, 2020. In the middle of a global pandemic, Beatrice was married at Windsor in front of a handful of guests. No procession, no balcony kiss, no live broadcast. It was, by royal standards, barely a wedding at all. And for that small, almost secret ceremony, the Queen sent out of the vault the tiara she had worn as a bride herself 73 years earlier. She didn't stop there. In the weeks before the wedding, a gown left the Queen's personal wardrobe, a vintage Norman Hartnell that Elizabeth had worn herself decades earlier. Her own dressers took it in, seam by seam, refitting the monarch's dress around her granddaughter's measurements. Beatrice was married in it. Not a family heirloom on loan, not a designer commission. The Queen's own gown, remade for one bride. To this day, no other granddaughter has ever been married in the Queen's own dress, and no bride has worn the Queen's wedding tiara since. The palace never explained either choice. It never does. And be careful with anyone who claims to know exactly what Elizabeth intended, because nobody outside that family can. What can be said is this. Monarchs have long passed personal treasures to their families quietly, through private wishes that never see daylight, and nothing about what Beatrice may have received has ever been confirmed. But whatever the sealed paperwork says, Elizabeth chose to spend one of the last great symbolic gestures of her reign on the granddaughter the cameras had spent a decade overlooking. A tiara with her own wedding mourning soldered into its frame. A dress with her own measurements in the seams. If a queen wanted to show her family, and a country paying attention, where her private trust actually lived, it is hard to imagine a clearer way to do it in broad daylight. But loans and dresses, in the end, are still the Queen's gestures. The strongest evidence in this story points the other way. It's what Beatrice did back. For years, the working assumption in royal coverage was that Beatrice's children would carry the York name forward and little else. Her daughters hold no royal titles. Their father, Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi, sits entirely outside the working monarchy. By every measure used to rank the family tree, succession, styles, duties, they sit near the bottom of it. Look at their full names, and the entire measure stops making sense. Beatrice's first daughter, born in September 2021, while her great-grandmother was still alive, is Sienna Elizabeth Mapelli Mozzi. Her second, born in January 2025, is Athena Elizabeth Rose Mapelli Mozzi, the same tribute, chosen twice, more than 3 years apart. And think about what changed between those two decisions. The second time, there was no living queen left to please, no grandmother to thank her, no court to take note of the gesture, no invitation that might follow from it. Every practical reason for a royal to flatter the crown was gone. She did it anyway. And she wasn't alone in the instinct. Her sister Eugénie named her son, born in February 2021, while his great-grandfather was still alive, August Philip Hawke Brooks Bank, folding Prince Philip's name into her side of the family exactly the way Beatrice folded in Elizabeth's. Two sisters dismissed for years as the monarchy's spare parts quietly turned their children's birth certificates into a family memorial. This is not sentimental colour. It rewrites who royal watchers assumed was carrying Elizabeth's memory forward. The working royals inherited her duties, the patronages, the ribbon cuttings, the state occasions. But her name, the thing a family actually says out loud at breakfast, at bedtime, every single day, is being carried by the branch everyone ranked last. And notice what this version of inheritance required. No tiara had to change hands, no will had to be unsealed, no lawyer, no court order, no palace statement, no confirmation from anyone. Beatrice made the decision twice, in a hospital room rather than a palace, and nobody ever needed to confirm or deny a thing because the birth certificates already had. The Fringe tiara will surface again someday on some future bride, its ownership never announced, the way these things always go. And when it does, the cameras will ask the same question they asked in 2020. Why her? The papers that could answer it will still be sealed, hidden well past the lifetime of everyone watching this, the way they have been from the start. But a will is only one form an inheritance takes. Long before any document could confirm anything, Elizabeth had already shown her family, in the plainest language available to a queen, where her private trust sat. Titles can be granted and taken away. Duties can be reassigned. But nobody can legislate what a grandmother lends, and nobody can seal what a mother decides to name her children. She dressed one granddaughter out of all of them in a gown from her own wardrobe and the tiara from her own wedding morning. And that granddaughter answered in the plainest language available to a mother. Somewhere in London, a will nobody may ever read sits behind its seal. In 2 nurseries, a name nobody sealed away is already being said out loud every single day.